Once Star Trek went digital, the franchise was changed forever. Those of us old enough to remember terrestrial broadcasting feel the frustration of having to wait for reruns and international distribution dates before we could catch our favourite episodes again. Streaming has changed how audiences interact with media. Gone is the appointment television format that marked so much of Star Trek's early success and challenges. The Friday night death slot spelled doom for the original series, so one wonders what would have happened if such a thing didn't exist. Star Trek Discovery was one of the first iterations to premiere entirely on digital, and since then Star Trek has never looked back. Here we will look at some of the biggest bonuses to come from this new age of internet content and how it has benefited our favourite property. With that in mind, I'm Sean Fennick for TrekCulture, and here are 10 ways the streaming era has improved Star Trek. Number 10. Star Trek Enterprise. When Star Trek Enterprise debuted in 2001, the world was a very different place. Though at the time audiences are still used to the broadcasting methods that have been in place from the original series to Voyager, the format was beginning to feel stale. The show arrived on screens barely a month after the September 11th attacks, offering Roddenberry's bright and rosy vision for the future. It was simply the wrong tool at the wrong time, so the ratings were never where they needed to be. Like the original series before it, it faced cancellation, rebirth, and final death, all within 4 seasons. When These Are the Voyages went out, that was it for Star Trek. The curtain lowered, the franchise was dormant. The success of Star Trek in 2009 helped to breathe enough life back into the franchise to inspire a new movie series and eventually a new streaming series, Star Trek Discovery. However, Enterprise was a happy benefactor of this. It finally found its audience when it arrived on streaming platforms. Audiences began to enjoy it in a way that they simply hadn't been able to in the early 2000s. Starfleet's first crew may have taken a long road to get there, but they finally found their home. Number 9. Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Despite glowing reviews, Deep Space Nine was the forgotten middle child of the franchise when it aired in the 90s. The serialized storytelling, now standard for many shows, made it a little harder to find new viewers. The darker themes, again now far more common, were stark at the time. This was Star Trek, but not as we knew it. It took years, with the show finding new fans through reruns and VHS and DVD sales, but public opinion began to sway. The producers noted that, while airing, it did well enough not to be cancelled, but never received the viewing figures of The Next Generation or Voyager. Something that still seems to be the case today, according to Robert Hewitt-Wolf on the recent episode of the TrekCulture podcast. The fanbase does seem to be die-hard when it comes to DS9, with streaming allowing some of the less flashy episodes another round of life. In the Pale Moonlight may be the prestige, but don't sleep on episodes like Progress, Shadowplay, or Family Business either. Instead of digging out the old cassettes, simply scroll. Number 8. Worldwide audience. One of the more controversial elements of the streaming era has been the staggered rollout of CBS All Access, which was then absorbed and transformed into a part of Paramount+. How is this a positive, one wonders? Well, despite the mistakes that were made during said rollout, the streaming era has increased the size of the worldwide audience. When Star Trek was limited to television broadcast, availability would often be dependent on channels operating in certain areas. In Ireland and the UK, BBC and Sky would broadcast Trek, which was generally available in most homes. However, all Star Trek pre-Discovery is currently available on Netflix in this part of the world, removing the need for subscribing to either channel. Paramount Plus is finally available here too, marking the remainder of Trek, with Star Trek Prodigy now available on Netflix, accessible to audiences. There are certain areas that are still without access. For example, Canadian subscribers to Netflix do not have access to Prodigy at the time of recording. But overall, the scope of audience has improved. It is a far from perfect method of sharing Star Trek with the world, but it has brought the cost down. Fans no longer need to rely on purchasing physical editions of each of their favourite shows, although, to be fair, those often have very good special features and are worth picking up if at all possible. Number 7. Budget increase. The current era of television has seen a reduction in the number of episodes per season. There is an ongoing discussion over the benefits, or lack thereof, of shorter seasons. Please check out our recent article on so-called filler episodes, which goes into the discussion about longer seasons, with episodes that may not play into the overall arc. In one aspect, there has been a definite improvement. The budgets per episode have seen a marked increase, with less season competition between them. Where the 90s era saw seasons of 26 episodes, almost every season since 2017 has had closer to 10 episodes. Star Trek Discovery has generally shortened its seasons as it went, while Prodigy featured shorter episodes, even with a longer couple of seasons. The result has seen more money go towards CGI. The Vulcan Hello, Remembrance, Strange New Worlds, each of these pilots has had gorgeous visuals. Lower Decks, Short Treks, and Prodigy have all seen the benefit of a bigger financial pot to play with. Where the streaming era has sacrificed the number of episodes per season, this has at least allowed them to spread their resources a little less thin. Number 6. Quicker turnaround. The rise in the number of shows streaming has generally led to a quicker turnaround between series. There is usually about a year between seasons of Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks, or Discovery, so fans have had to wait patiently, but often while enjoying a different Star Trek show at the time. There have also been crossovers in terms of release dates. Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Lower Decks shared some air dates, while the former also shared time with Star Trek Picard. Those who are gluttons for content were not left wanting. Things are beginning to calm down now. Lower Decks' final season began airing on October 24th. Strange New Worlds returns for its third season in 2025, while Section 31 and Starfleet Academy are still a bit off. Tony Newsom and Justin Simeon's comedy show is in the early stages of development, which means that would likely be a 2026 release at the earliest. There will still be lots of content coming, perhaps a little more spaced out than these last 7 years have been. Number 5. Star Trek after shows. Now, obviously, this is something that directly benefits us here at TrekCulture as well, so it is hard to be unbiased. The sheer amount of Star Trek that has been offered to fans since the streaming era began has allowed for so much more complementary content, something that has seen the rise in the ups and downs with us, but also After Trek, the official Star Trek after show. Wil Wheaton has hosted The Ready Room since its second season, with Naomi Kyle hosting the first season, while Matt Mira hosted After Trek during its single-season run. These shows have served as post-episode discussions, featuring interviews with guests like the actors or creatives. For Star Trek fans who crave a deeper knowledge of what goes into making our favourite shows, these discussions have been an important part of the journey. Indeed, the ups and downs have also expanded and developed since they began with Star Trek Picard's first season, allowing a deeper investigation into the making of each episode, as well as those ever-elusive Easter eggs. Oh sorry, what's that? Oh, The Ready Room has been cancelled. Kurtzman! Number 4. Engagement. The streaming era has gone hand in hand with the rise of social media and internet discussions in general. While internet forums are nothing new, the rapid contact with which people have had with each other and Star Trek creatives has increased exponentially. The negative aspects of this engagement are occasionally hard to ignore, as hate farmers have dedicated their platforms to making money while slating other people's work. But the positive side of engagement far outweighs the negative. Entire online communities have built up, often focusing on online watch-alongs, which is something that saw a particular increase during 2020. Too much of anything is rarely good, and as someone who has spent entire days lost in the streaming model, I do advise a little bit of off time for balance. But there is quite a lot of positivity to be found in these online communities if one just navigates the nonsense of the clickbaiters. Number 3. Star Trek Online. Star Trek Online was first released in 2011, offering an internet platform for Trekkies and Trekkers to game. It was also filling a void, as there was no televised Star Trek at that time. Entire fleets of ships were introduced, legacy characters returned, and it rapidly grew. When Star Trek began airing its streaming era, there was a massive reshuffle with expanded universe content. The ongoing novel universe was tied up in the Coda trilogy, as new releases would now align with what we were used to seeing on screen. Online continued though, before being featured in some surprising cameos. Star Trek Picard's second season introduced several ships that were, up until that point, unique to the games. The Ross class, the Gagarin class, the Reliant class, and the Sutherland class were all designs from Star Trek Online, now realised on screen. The third season introduced yet more online ships, such as the Pathfinder class and, of course, the Odyssey class. This cemented their status as canon, in-universe designs. Number 2. Star Trek Prodigy. Star Trek Prodigy had a rocky road from its premiere to the final episode of its second season. This was originally a joint venture between Paramount and Nickelodeon. The first season was released in 2 batches of 10 episodes, which dropped weekly. In hindsight, this hurt the show from the jump. Audiences didn't really know what to make of it, so they were slow to come aboard. Was it a kids show? Was it a young adult show? Could anyone give them a solid answer? Then, the worst news. Paramount was pulling it from their streaming service, thus ending the hope for any one single home of Star Trek. However, the fan community rallied, planes were sent into the air bearing banners of hope, and Star Trek Prodigy found a new life on Netflix, thus allowing the delayed second season to air to near universal praise. The fate of Prodigy is, in the future, still unclear, but around it, an online storm of support has rallied. It may not have the highest streaming figures of the current Star Trek shows, but it certainly has one of the more loyal fan bases, proving once again why this online platform has been a positive thing for the franchise. Number 1. Star Trek Section 31. The long-rumoured Star Trek Section 31 is finally en route, with a teaser trailer having dropped at San Diego Comic-Con 2024. It was announced shortly after Star Trek Discovery's third season completed its run, attempting to placate the fans who weren't ready to see Philippa Georgiou leave that show's roster. Then terrible news! Michelle Yeoh went and won an Oscar! How foolish! Now she surely wouldn't have any time to make more Star Trek. Well, the fans needn't have worried. Barely a day went by after the Academy Awards ceremony in 2023 before CBS put out a statement confirming that Section 31 was still in development, though it had been retooled to become a standalone movie rather than a spin-off series. Yeoh herself was quick to confirm this, allowing that hope to build in fans' hearts again. None of this would have happened if Star Trek Discovery hadn't proved popular with the community, nor the shows that came from that success. If Section 31 is a success, this paves the way for future streaming-era movies, so it's in everyone's best interests to support it. Streaming has changed Star Trek forever, and while some of those changes have been jarring, they are ultimately an improvement for the franchise. There is more Star Trek than ever before, with more on the way and big names attached. It may be different, but through streaming, Star Trek has found a new lease on life. That's everything for us today, folks. What did you think? Let us know in the comments below. We hope that you're okay. We hope that you're well. Please follow us on the various platforms. I'm at Sean Ferrick, and we are, of course, at TrekCulture. Please make sure that you're subscribed to the channel as well. Till I see you again, make sure that you look after yourself. Live long and prosper. Thanks very much.